Al Green moment when we were doing Arms to Short the Box of God, and we were on Broadway. I'm going home to see my sister who's not well, who's dying of cancer. I don't care about your sister. Why do you want to say that?
Al Green is a master of soul music, but what if you found out he was actually violent? Apparently, there's a story there. From a domestic abuse case where a woman died in his house.
All of a sudden you hear, and that was the end of that. You hear something hit the floor, boom, and that was the end of that. I said, what's that noise? She said, sound like gunshot.
To lashing out at even Patti Labelle.
There was an Al Green moment when we were doing Arms to Short the Box of God, and we were on Broadway. I'm going home to see my sister who's not well, who's dying of cancer. I don't care about your sister. Why do you want to say that?
As well as accusations of assaulting girlfriends and employees.
I told my mother, I told my father, I told my sister.
It appears this man many know as an iconic preacher and soul singer has such a dark streak that feels unreal. Let's get into it. Al Green was a famous singer in the 1970s. People loved his songs. He had a smooth voice, and his music made people feel warm and happy. Songs like Let's Stay Together
Let's stay together, loving you.
and Love and Happiness were big hits.
Love and happiness.
Many called him a legend because his songs were full of deep feelings. But even though he had fame and success, his personal life had problems. Al was married to Shirley.
The anointing of God rested on you and Reverend Al Green.
Shirley Green was not just a wife, she was part of her husband's world, singing backup and working at his church. They had 3 daughters together, but their marriage was far from happy. In 1978, she filed for divorce. She said she could not stay because of cruelty and other problems that could not be fixed. This was not the first time she had tried to leave. Shirley told a shocking story about what happened to her. She said her husband was violent. She remembered one terrible night in 1978 when she was 5 months pregnant. She said he got angry and hit her with a boot because she did not want to have sex. The attack was so bad that she had to get stitches on her head. It was hard to believe that a man known for singing about love could do something so terrible to his own wife. At first, he denied everything. He said he never hurt her, but in 1982, under oath, he had to tell the truth. He admitted that he hit her, but by then, the damage had already been done. Shirley said the violence happened many times. It was not just one night. She said it got worse over time. After everything she had been through, Shirley finally left him for good. The court made him pay $432,800 for alimony and child support. But money could not erase what had happened. It could not take away the pain. Years later, after Nicole Brown Simpson's murder brought attention to domestic violence, Shirley spoke up again. She wanted other women to know they were not alone. She wanted them to know they did not have to stay in bad situations. But Shirley was not the only woman who accused him of violence.
There was an Al Green moment when we were doing Arms to Short the Box of God, and we were on Broadway. I'm going home to see my sister who's not well, who's dying of cancer. I don't care about your sister. Why do you want to say that?
Decades before, his secretary, Linda Wills, had also taken legal action. She said he attacked her and sued him for $25,000. There were more disturbing stories. In one case, a woman claimed he got angry over a paycheck dispute. She said he pushed her through a glass door in his office. But the case was dismissed because different witnesses gave different versions of what happened. Even though some cases did not go to court, he still had to pay. He ended up settling another lawsuit for $100,000. The charge was for assault and battery. For a man whose songs made people feel love and joy, his private life was much darker. He had a talent for music, but his past would always follow him. Many people still whisper about what happened behind closed doors. No matter how far he tried to move on, these stories would not go away.
All I can say, Lord,
One night in 1974 changed his life forever. It was a night filled with pain, shock, and tragedy. Al Green met a woman named Mary Woodson.
I said, what's that? She says, I love you. I said, well, okay, great. Then you love me, I like you too. So I ain't no problem with it.
She was not just a fan. She was a married woman with 3 children. But Al did not know this at first.
Well, see, there's one thing she didn't tell me. You know, I find out after the incident happened that she was married, had 3 kids. I didn't know none of these things.
She told him she was visiting a friend when she first met him at a concert. But the truth was she had left her family and was deeply in love with Al. She wanted to be with him forever. They spent time together and things moved fast. She followed him from city to city. Al thought she was exciting, but sometimes she acted strangely. She spoke as if she could see the future, and he had a bad feeling about her. But he ignored it because he liked her. One night, Al got a call from a sheriff. Mary had been arrested for smoking weed at a hotel. He went to help her, and she was released. Instead of going home, they went to his music studio. Al hoped that music would calm her down, and it seemed to work. Later, they went to his house. Al's friend, Carlotta Williams, a flight attendant, came over too. Mary seemed fine with her, so Al thought everything was okay. He made sure they knew they would all stay in separate rooms. He did not want any problems. That night, something felt strange. Mary was standing over a pot of boiling water in the kitchen. She looked tense.
And she says, well, I love you, and I don't want to, to go on without you, and to be involved in anything else doesn't mean anything to me.
Suddenly, she asked Al if he would marry her. This surprised him. He was not ready to talk about that. He did not want to hurt her feelings, so he told her they could talk later. She smiled and told him she would never do anything to hurt him. Al believed her. He kissed her and went upstairs to get ready for bed. As he was brushing his teeth, he saw Mary behind him in the mirror. She was holding the pot. Before he could react, she threw the boiling water at him. The water was mixed with grits, making it thick and sticky. It burned his skin badly. The pain was terrible. He screamed in agony. The burns were so bad that parts of his skin peeled off. His friend Carlotta heard the screams. She ran out of her room and saw Al stumbling. He was in so much pain that he could hardly stand. He rushed into the bathroom, and Carlotta helped him into the bathtub. She turned on the cold water to cool his burns.
Just get me to the hospital. I says, I am hurting. See? And by then, man, I had big boils all over my back, man.
As he tried to catch his breath, they heard a loud noise from another room. It was a gunshot. Then, something heavy hit the floor. Al and Carlotta looked at each other, afraid of what had just happened. Mary had gone into another room, grabbed Al's gun, and shot herself. It was a shocking and tragic end to the night.
All of a sudden you hear, and that was the end of that. You hear something hit the floor, boom, and that was the end of that. I said, what's that noise? She said, sound like gunshots. I said, this can't be that. Come on, this is ridiculous. This thing is going crazy.
She had planned this. Later, the police found a note in her purse. It said she had already tried to take her own life days before. She had taken sleeping pills and cut her wrists. Meanwhile, Al was taken to the hospital. The burns on his back were so bad that doctors had to do skin grafts. This meant they had to take skin from other parts of his body to replace the damaged skin. The recovery was long and painful. He had to stay in bed for months.
But I asked people today, I'll sneak off and ask the chief of police today, who's a good friend of mine. I says, did this actually, or was she faking? Or was she joking? I don't, that's unbelievable.
While he was healing, Al thought about his life. He had already been interested in Christianity, but now faith became even more important to him. He prayed a lot and read the Bible. He thought about his future. He still loved music, but he also wanted to serve God. The story of what happened spread fast. People were shocked. Some made jokes about it. Years later, rappers like Usher and R. Kelly mentioned Al Green in their songs. Some used the story as a joke, calling it the Hot Grits incident. Method Man even compared himself to Al in a song. But for Al, it was no joke. It was a painful memory that changed his life forever. Al Green went through many tough times in his life. Just when he thought things were getting better, his own second cousin pulled a gun on him. She said he owed her money and wanted it right then and there. Most people would have called the police, but Al didn't. He decided to let it go. He didn't press charges, and the whole thing just faded away. It was another strange moment in his life, but he didn't let it stop him. After all the chaos, Al felt like he needed a change. He turned to faith and made it the center of his life. He didn't just pray more, he became a minister. He even bought his own church in Memphis where he preached when he wasn't performing. One day he was a huge R&B star. The next, he was leading Sunday service, trying to help people find peace. But life had a way of keeping him on edge. One night, while performing on stage, he took a bad fall. Most people would have just seen it as an accident, but Al saw something deeper. To him, it was a sign from God telling him it was time to leave pop music behind and focus fully on gospel. It wasn't an easy decision. The world loved him as an R&B singer, and his fans weren't ready for him to change. Music executives told him to stick with what made money, but Al didn't care. He knew gospel was where his heart was.
We'll see him in his glory, riding on the clouds of joy.
Still, he struggled to find balance. One moment he was recording gospel albums, and the next he was singing R&B again. It wasn't because he couldn't make up his mind. He just loved both. The challenge was figuring out how to keep his faith strong while also giving his fans the music they loved.
I told my mother, I told my father, I told my sister.
People expected him to be perfect, but he was still human. He faced many challenges along the way, including legal troubles. In 1974, his former secretary, Linda Willis, sued him. She said Al pushed her through a glass door during a fight about her salary. She wanted $100,000 in damages. At first, the case was dismissed because there were too many different stories about what happened. But she didn't give up. She took the case to federal court, and in the end, it was settled for the amount she asked for. Al, however, told a different story. He said that Willis hit him first, and that they both fell through the glass door when he tried to push her away. No one could say for sure what really happened, but it was another tough moment in his life. Then, in 1977, things got messy again. On Memorial Day, he got into a fight with his organist, Larry Robinson. Robinson claimed Al owed him money for a show they did in Texas. The argument turned into a physical fight, and both of them ended up getting arrested. They were charged with assault. In 1979, Green had another life-changing experience. He fell off the stage during a concert in Cincinnati. He saw this as a sign from God.
I know one thing I had to do. I had to get into the religious segment, not because I wanted to, but it was the calling, the drawing card to me to come into it. If I accept it, do it.
He believed it was time to fully dedicate himself to gospel music and leave behind his pop career. He had already become a born-again Christian a year before, but after this accident, his faith grew even stronger. During his recovery, he spent a lot of time reading the Bible and praying. He started to see his music career in a different way. For him, gospel music was now more important than fame and money.
I said, man, this is too fast. This is too much happening here. One year I'm a rock star, the next year I'm a gospel preacher.
He wanted to use his voice for a greater purpose.
Jesus turns water to wine.
Some hip-hop artists later mentioned Green's past in their songs. Usher, R. Kelly, and Method Man all made references to his struggles and experiences. Method Man even rapped about the moment Green was attacked with hot grits. showing how well known that event became. But for Green, this was not something to laugh about. It was a serious moment in his life that changed everything. By 1976, Green had become a minister. He bought the Full Gospel Tabernacle Church in Memphis. When he wasn't touring, he was preaching. He loved gospel music and put all his energy into it. In the 1980s, he released several gospel albums that won Grammy Awards. His fans from the old days still loved him, but many also respected him for his spiritual journey. Then, in 1993, he surprised everyone by returning to R&B with the album Don't Look Back. This album brought back the soulful Memphis sound that made him famous in the 1970s.
You are my everything.
But life was not always smooth for Green. He faced serious financial and legal troubles. In the 1990s, members of his own church accused him of misusing church money. They believed he was spending church donations on personal things instead of using them for church needs. This created a lot of tension. Church members started to doubt him, and it became a big issue. People expect their donations to help the church, not to end up in someone's personal bank account. When these accusations came out, many people were shocked. Green had always preached about faith and doing the right thing, so these claims made people question him. Some church members even took him to court, asking for proof of how the money was being spent. It was a tough situation for Green.
I felt the Holy Spirit, and I couldn't hold my peace. No.
Imagine being a pastor and having your own congregation turn against you. These were people who once supported him, but now they wanted answers. They wanted to know if their trust had been broken. This was not just a small problem. It was a serious issue that could have destroyed his reputation. If the case dragged on in court, it could have made things even worse. But instead of letting things go too far, Green and the church members decided to settle the case privately. They did not want to fight in court for a long time. No one knows exactly what agreement was made, but the lawsuit disappeared. Even though the case was closed, the accusations still followed Green. People kept whispering about it, and some never fully trusted him again.
I told my mother, I told my father, I told my sister.
Green also faced other problems in his personal life. He had been accused of domestic violence and harassment. These kinds of allegations can be very damaging, especially for someone who built a career on love songs and gospel music. Whether the claims were true or not, they added to the struggles he faced in his later years. Al Green was one of the most famous soul and gospel singers. He sang hit songs like Let's Stay Together
Let's stay together, loving you well.
and Take Me to the River.
Take me to the river, wash me down.
He sold over 20 million records and won 11 Grammy Awards. In 1995, he was put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2014, he was honored at the Kennedy Center. Even though he was very successful, some people said he was difficult to work with. Some band members and people who worked with him said he had a bad temper. They said he was unpredictable and sometimes acted strangely. His fame and personal struggles made his behavior worse. Many people did not understand his actions, and he remained a mystery to the music world. Al Green was born as Albert Green in Arkansas. He had 9 brothers and sisters. His father, Robert Jr., worked as a sharecropper. His mother, Cora Lee, took care of the family. Green started singing gospel music when he was only 9 years old. He and his brothers formed a group called the Green Brothers. They sang in church and other places. Later, his family moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Green's father was very strict. One day, Green was caught listening to soul music, especially Jackie Wilson. His father did not like this and threw him out of the house. Green was just a teenager at the time. He then moved in with his girlfriend and tried to figure out what to do next. Green loved music and did not give up. He formed a band called Al Green and the Creations. Two of the band members, Palmer James and Curtis Rogers, started a music label called Hotline Music Journal. They helped Green record a song called Backup Train under a new band name, The Soulmates.
I'm a lonely man, just a lonely man, need a help.
In 1968, the song became very popular. It reached number 1, 5 on the R&B charts. This was a big moment for Green because it helped him get noticed in the music world. Later, Green met a music producer named Willie Mitchell. Mitchell was impressed with Green's voice and signed him to High Records. Green decided to drop the last letter E from his last name and became known as Al Green. In 1969, he released his first album, Green is Blues. This album was a success and reached number 1, 3 on the Billboard charts. This was just the beginning of his music career. In 1972, Green released an album called Let's Stay Together. The title song became a huge hit. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. This made Green a star. Over the next few years, he had more hits and became one of the biggest names in soul music. Even though he was very successful, he later decided to change his music style. In 1980, Green stopped making soul music and started singing gospel music. He signed with Mir Records and recorded 6 gospel albums. His first gospel album, The Lord Will Make a Way, won a Grammy Award.
And I sing to my soul, don't worry.
Green also performed on Broadway in a show called Your Arms Too Short to Box with God. He worked with other famous artists like Patti LaBelle, Annie Lennox, and Lyle Lovett. One of his most popular collaborations was Put a Little Love in Your Heart with Annie Lennox. Over time, Green made a lot of money from his music. According to reports, he has a net worth of $25 million. During the 1970s, when Green was at the height of his fame, he made a big decision. He bought his own church in Memphis, Tennessee. The church was called Full Gospel Tabernacle. Green became a pastor and started preaching. Even though he focused on the church, he still made music. In 1977, he released a gospel album called The Bell Album. Later, in 2008, he released another album called Lay It Down. This album mixed gospel and R&B music. It became very popular and even won 2 Grammy Awards. In 2019, Green decided to go on tour again. He wanted to promote a collection of his old songs. The collection was called Al Green, the High Records Singles Collection. When asked why he was touring, he said, "I tour because that's what I do. I make music, I do the church, all that." Green had a strong connection to his fans. His voice was soft but powerful. He sang with passion, and people believed every word. He became one of the biggest soul singers of all time. His songs played on the radio everywhere. People danced to his music at parties and listened to it when they were sad or in love. His music was timeless. Even after many years, people still enjoyed his songs.